We talked about the 7 areas of learning last time. Do you remember the 7 areas?
Personal, social and emotion development and physical development, communication and language, and 4 special areas, for example, literacy, mathematics, understanding the world, and expressive arts and design.
Perfect, very nice. Again, because I don't know how good the level of English of the people watching the video will be, can you say the 7 areas in Mandarin for us? To the camera maybe?
首先是身体上的，然后还有情感上的，还有艺术方面的，然后还有交流方面的。Thank you. 然后还有社交方面，还有学习方面的，比如说阅读和写作，还有数学，还有对这个世界的理解，还有一些关于艺术和设计方面的。That's it.
Thank you. So, there are also each of the areas has some sub areas that we looked at. So, we need to be looking at this, by the way. So we have the 7 areas and the sub areas, and then what today I'd like to look at is examples. Like, what does it actually mean? So you don't have to learn this off by heart. There's too much, but I think it's a helpful pack. So this is the development matters pack, and it looks a little bit like this. And it's got many pages. It's a big pack. So we're going to look at it together. We're not going to look at all of it because it's too long. So the first section, just going to make a bit of space on the table. So the first section we can see at the top, it's the personal, social and emotional development, which is PSED. And then within that is the first area, making relationships. So if you remember our 7 areas, we're looking at the first area, PSED, and it's the first one, making relationships. And then we have, on the left-hand side, we have the age of the children, so birth to 11, 8 to 20 months, 16 to 26 months. And actually, if we turn the page upwards, it depends how it's printed, but on the other side, it carries on 26 to 36 months, 30 to 50 months, 40 to 60 months. So the first 2 pages, it's the same section, and just as the children get older. And then within this page, we have these 3 columns. So we have a unique child, positive relationships, and enabling environments. And if you remember, this plus this plus this equals learning and development. So what we want is we want our children to learn and to develop. And so we have the 3 areas, and the learning and growth is what happens. And so here we have the topics of what's on the first one, a unique child, what the child can do. So we're going to just look at that one first. So for example, in PSED, in making relationships, for the very youngest children in birth to 11 months, the first one is enjoys the company of others and seeks contacts with others from birth. And the second one is gaze at faces and copies facial movements, e.g. sticking out tongue, opening mouth and widening eyes. So this you maybe recognise from a baby. This is what babies do. And then if we go a little bit older, so 8 to 20 months, that's probably the bunnies age group. We see that children seek to gain attention in a variety of ways, drawing others into social interaction. So it's not just looking, but there's some sort of interaction starting to happen. And this results in children can build relationships with special people, and then is maybe wary of unfamiliar people. Do you know what wary means? To be cautious.
cautious.
How would you say that in Mandarin?
注意。
就是你会对别人产生兴趣，会注意一下别人对你的态度之类的这些。
警惕。
So not the opposite of confidence.
Yeah.
So at this age, so the very youngest babies maybe don't make such a difference. And then as they start to get a little older, they make the difference between people they know and people they don't know. And then as they get a little bit older, starting to get into the penguin age group, so the children will play alongside others and they'll use a familiar adult as a base. So maybe the child is familiar with a parent or a key person, and then once they have the confidence with the person, they go and they do something new, and then maybe they go back to the teacher or the parent. So there's that sort of behavior that is that we notice. And the last one on this one is plays cooperatively with a familiar adult. So it's able to play with an adult together. And then as the children get older, so the 22 to 36 months, so we're still PSED making relationships, 22 to 36 months. So interested in others' play and starts to join in. So they're getting better with playing with the other children. And then the last one, for example, may form a special relationship with the child. So that's really the start of friendship, like a proper friendship of understand. Do you notice that in the penguins?
Yes.
And then as we get even older, so the very oldest children in our setting, they can play in a group and they extend and elaborate play ideas, e.g. they can build up role-playing activity with other children. And then for the 40 to 60 plus, we sometimes see some of this behavior with our older children. So initiates conversations and attends and takes account of what other people are saying. So the children are able to really understand somebody else's conversation and what they might need or what they might be talking about. So do you see that this is all the same sort of emotional development we're talking about? It's really the social and, well, maybe it's more personal, it's all PSED. And we see that from the baby, always just focusing on this one type of behavior, we see the development as the children get older. So this is very much the EYFS in these 7 areas of learning. This is the way this is a good example of the way we think about things. We want to see what is a child capable of doing, what were they able to do before, and what do we hope they can do next, which can then help us understand how we can support children. Because we don't want them to go backwards. So this helps us think of progress and development. So then we have positive relationships, which is what can we do to help? So we'll go back to the babies. So we're still on page 8, PSED, making relationships, positive relationships for birth to 11. So here we can make sure babies have their own special person in the setting who really knows them and understands them. So that's one of the things we try to do. We have key people. That's something that we can do. We can organise ourselves. So it's not everyday different people. And then, let's have another example. So we can, the third one, hold and handle babies, since sensitive touch helps build security and attachment. So physical touch is very reassuring to a young child. And these examples are things that we can do for both the bunnies and the penguins. So depending on how confident they are. So there are lots of examples. The third from the bottom, notice when babies turn away, signaling their need for less stimulation. So maybe they don't like it, or maybe they just need something a bit calmer. So we just notice that's how they express themselves. They can't talk yet. So we notice where they look, how they turn their bodies. And what we're trying to do here is really respond to the unique child. The opposite, which we don't do, the opposite is, I'm the teacher, I want to do this, why are you looking away? I'm frustrated as the teacher. So we want to do it the other way around. Understand the child first. What does the child need? How can we help the child learn and grow? And then as the children get older, we can, if we look at the 16 to 26 months, we see that a unique child, the children plays alongside others, but they're starting to learn how to maybe not play together, but play next to each other. So what can we do in the positive relationships? Well, we can involve all the children. So we can, instead of just focusing on one, it's okay to do a little situation where I'm helping you and I'm helping you. Maybe you're not playing together, but you're both doing a similar activity at the same table. So that's the type of thing that now we can encourage, and we can set up a situation where the children are able to play next to each other. We can help that happen, and then they learn to experience that. And you might notice that some children are not yet ready, and maybe they're okay if there's one or two, but if there are too many, they don't like it. So we can also try to help. So if we know the children go, we're going to maybe encourage other children, but not too many. And then as the confidence goes up, we can have a bigger group. So sort of one step at a time, helping the children progress and not forcing them to be in the middle of the circle time with too many children if they're not ready. So we were talking about observing and noticing. So we must know the children first. And then something else we can do at the bottom of page 8 in the middle. So help young children to understand the feelings of others by labeling emotions such as sadness or happiness. So that's another way to use emotional vocabulary in Mandarin. If someone is crying, you can say, oh, if they're crying, they're sad. So the combination of changing our voice, looking at the child, a little bit of actions, we can help describe crying, which is a verb, but we can also say they're sad. So do you have the Makaton for sad? The sign language for sad? No, I think it's this. I'm not sure. But if you notice the other teachers doing some gestures, you can use the same gestures. And then on the other side, on page 9, so still positive relationships as the children are getting older. So we're 22 to 36 months. So we can again ensure the children have opportunities to join in. So here they can now join in playing a bit more together. So we can talk more about feelings and emotions. And then as the children get older, 30 to 50, we can support children in developing positive relationships by challenging negative comments and actions towards either peers or adults. So by this age group, there's a certain level of behaviour that we expect. And if we look at the unique child, so we expect the child can play in a group, extending and elaborating ideas. So if one child is not being kind to another child, at this age we expect them to be able to be in a group. So our golden rules always apply, but here we have higher expectations for what the children can do. So if a child pushes another child, we can just talk about it, say, well, we can explain we don't do that here, we're kind to each other, and just help them to understand this is how we work as a group. And then this bottom one, plan support for children who have not yet made friends. So some children find it more difficult to make friends. So we don't just ignore it and just go, oh, doesn't matter, this child doesn't have any friends. We need to really, as a team, plan for that. So identify, do they not like anyone, or is there someone they find it easier to play with? Is there someone who's maybe more similar and they're not friends yet, but that child finds it easier with that child than the other children. So we can try to make sure that they're next to each other more often, maybe at lunchtime, or try to have them in activities. We can help create a situation where they can become friends, because maybe they don't have the confidence on their own. So as adults, that's what we can do to help positive relationships that will help the child. And if we go back to the beginning, top right of page 8, so enabling environments. So if you remember, we've got the unique child, the positive relationships, and the environment, I suppose, is the classroom and that sort of thing. So the first thing is ensure the staff are aware of the importance of attachment. So in a way, that's what this training is. This induction training and also other training, is we just make sure that, so the positive relationships of what the teachers do, the environment is, I suppose, the organisation. So here we can make sure that teachers have some training to understand that it's important to have a bond. How do you say a bond? It's important to have a bond with the child.
与孩子们建立连接。
And then we make sure that the key person has a buddy who knows the baby and family well. Should we do that? I suppose that we get to know the family. It's maybe what we're talking about here. And then and then the bottom one here, repeat greetings at the start and the end of the sessions, so that young babies recognise and become familiar with these daily routines. So this one, on the one hand, it sounds a little bit like positive relationships, but here it's really talking about routine. So the positive relationship is much more about the direct interaction, and of course saying hello and goodbye is interaction. But here we're thinking about it as the routine for the day. So having a routine helps the child understand, when I arrive here, everyone will say hello to me. So it just helps them, and that creates a good environment for them. And then as the children get older, we can organise games with names, and we can review how the children respond to us. So for example, in the bottom one of 16 to 26, the bottom one says, for a unique child, it says, plays cooperatively with a familiar adult, for example, a ball. So for that to be possible in the classroom, we need to have activities that it's possible to interact with. So the enabling environment is really, how do we prepare the classroom that helps the child learn and grow? So there's the two halves, what can the child do, and then how do we organise it to help them? If we go a little bit older, we can make sure that children have time to be with their key person. So for example, Faye, you said some children went to the park.
Sorry.
You said some children went to the park?
No, I have 他是问我去哪儿还是
go to the outdoor activity, went to the park.
Yeah, and you stayed in the classroom.
I stayed in
Exactly. So in your example, some children went to the park, and Pippa and you stayed in the classroom.
Yeah.
So Pippa is a key person. She had time to be with her key children.
Yeah.
And that's what this is talking about. Make time for children to be with their key person.
Yeah.
So our routine, our organisation, has to include time for the children to be with their key person, and not just always a big group.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you understand the idea? This is how we sort of think about things. Does that make sense?
Yes, but we still need time to learn.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I don't expect you to learn it all off by heart, but it can be very helpful to understand the progression. What is normal for a younger child, and what is normal for an older child. Yeah? So we're going to look at some more interesting examples. This is quite dry, very specific. So I have prepared, not me, but have you seen the teachers use iPads
Yes.
and take photos?
Yeah.
So they write observations. So we're going to look at a pack of observations. It should look like this. So I have one for you, and we'll read it together slowly. So again, because I'd like to have a bit of Mandarin in the video, Li Wen, do you think you could read this to yourself in English? Just read it.
Yeah.
I mean. And then could you just describe it in Mandarin for the video? Just describe observation 1.
Observation 1. Okay. In English, right?
No, if you could say it in Mandarin.
Yeah. 其中一个小朋友在和另一个小朋友在教室里玩儿，他们一起玩的非常和谐，他们在一个木质的桥上玩耍，他对走路非常感兴趣，而且非常喜欢上楼梯和下楼梯。孩子 A，走路的时候，滑滑梯的时候会扶着滑梯的扶手，因为他不希望老师去帮助他去握住他的手，他会对老师说不，然后推开老师的手，孩子们那个孩子会说不谢谢，这个孩子 A 对老师微笑，但是老师还是站在旁边保护孩子 A。孩子 A 看起来非常开心，当他走在桥上和在桥上滑滑梯的时候，老师会鼓励孩子 A 说你做得很好，然后老师会对孩子 A 鼓掌，然后孩子 A 也会鼓掌，并且对老师微笑。他非常享受和其他孩子们一起玩耍的时候，然后这个孩子也会对其他的小朋友微笑。老师会一直鼓励孩子 A 去继续他和其他的小朋友之间的友谊。
Thank you. So, you understand what's happened? This is in the bunnies at LTO, and you've probably seen this. So, if we think about the EYFS, and we look at the page 2, observation 1, page 2, the teacher decided. So the teacher would write the observation on the iPad, take a picture, and then she chooses from the list which areas of learning and development she thinks it is. So she chose 3 different areas. There was PSED, which was self-confidence and self-awareness. And then afterwards she also chose PSED, making relationships. And at the bottom there was communication and language, understanding. So if we go to the first one at the top, the PSED, self-confidence and self-awareness, she thought this was an example of the 16 to 26 month age band. And the examples, we call the ones that we read here in the unique child, we call these statements. So she said the statement that she thought, that she saw, that this was a good example of, was demonstrates sense of self as an individual, wants to do things independently, and says no to the adult. So let's try to find that on our pack. So on this big pack, our first one is PSED, so we're in the right section, but ours is making relationship. Page 8 is starting with making relationships, but on the example she said PSED, self-confidence and self-awareness. That's a different section. So if we turn to page 10, page 10 you see PSED, self-confidence and self-awareness. That's the same category. And then she said it was a 16 to 26 month. So if we go to the bottom of page 10, bottom right, bottom left, bottom left, So page 10, it's the bottom left is 16 to 26 months.
Yeah.
And she said demonstrates a sense of self as an individual. E.g. wants to do things independently, says no to adult.
Yeah.
And we see it's there. It's the third one.
Mm.
So let's look at the. Where would be a good example? Give me 1 second. If we look at the younger age band, 8 to 20 months, there's nothing there. If we read the 3, there's nothing here that says saying no to the adult and doing something independently. This is a different age group and learns that voice has actions, uses eyes to gaze. Sees quite different behaviour compared to demonstrates a sense of self, e.g. by saying no to the adult. So that seems like a very good. They're the same. And if we look at the example, the observation, this is what the child says. No. The child said no to the teacher and pushing her hand away
Yeah.
because the child was doing it and didn't need help
Yes.
and was very satisfied with doing it on his own.
Yeah.
So this is the type of behaviour that we should expect to see in the 16 to 26 month age. Do you recognise this type of behaviour in the penguin's room?
Yes, exactly.
Nice.
And how about in the bunny's room?
Yeah.
You saw some as well?
So they can walk by if they can have confidence of walking by themselves to across the bridge to climb, they needn't need to help. And the first time I feel that this maybe is dangerous, so I want to protect, and they just push me.
They push you away.
Yes, just do by themselves.
So in September we have the younger children, and maybe you won't see that so much. So when the children are younger, they need help, they want the help. And as they get older and they can, they don't want help. They want to do it on their own. So this is how, that's just one example how we can really see the development of the child. So that's the first one. So if we go to the observation 1, page 2, the middle one is, so still PSED, but this one is making relationships. And the teacher said, making relationships, play alongside others. And also uses a familiar adult as a secure base from which to explore independently in new environments, e.g., for example, ventures away to play and interact with others, but comes back for a cuddle or reassurance if becomes anxious. So this one is PSED making relationships, which I think is page 8. We were just looking at these. Maybe it feels familiar already. So that's the big pack, page 8. And so we were looking at PSED, making relationships. And 16 to 26 months. We have play alongside others, it's the first one. Sorry about that. Play alongside others. And also, here, sometimes I've taken it off, but it says secure. So there's there are the different levels, and secure is the most confident and most able. So she said, this child, he's very able to play alongside others. So if we look at the example, we see this because in the description, the last paragraph, she says he really enjoys playing with the other child, and they smile to each other. So they're in the same space, and they're able to enjoy being together. It's not like I'm doing this and I pretend you're not there. Oh, I see you're there, and I see you, and we smile at each other. And maybe we're playing. We're not doing this. We're not playing together. I'm doing this, you're doing that. But I'm happy that you're doing it next to me. And so that's playing alongside others. And the next one is uses a familiar adult as a base. So that's the second one on the on the big pack. So does that make sense where that comes in?
Yeah.
And then the third area that she thought was communication and language, understanding. So let's find, so if we go back to our big pack, so it starts off with PSED, making relationships. We have 2 pages on that. And then it's still PSED, self-confidence and awareness. And we have 2 pages on that. And then we've got PSED, managing feelings and behaviour. And I have 3 pages on that. So we're going to go past all of that. And then on page 15, page 15, we have communication and language. And on the observation, she said communication, language, understanding. So we've got listening and attention on 15, and then it carries on 16, and then finally on page 17 we have communication, language, understanding. So do you see it's in a slightly different order, but do you see how this pack describes these sections with the subsections? Does that make sense? And so she said communication, language, understanding 8 to 20 months. So on page 17, left 8 to 20 months. We have, it's the first one that she chose, developing the ability to follow others' body language, including pointing and gesture. So that's what the teacher noticed. And that is the start of understanding. Before you can really understand everything, you have to first understand body language. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions about that?
No questions. I just when I read the sentence and I realized yesterday what's happened, it's the same.
It's the same.
Yes.
8 to 20 months. That's a very normal behaviour for the body room.
Yeah.
So I think if you don't have experience with this age group, spending some time to look, especially at the unique child, and then also positive relationships, what we can do, will really help you understand the child's development.
Yeah.
And then you can read the next box. So we were looking at 8 to 20. If we go to the one underneath, 16 to 26 months. So selects familiar objects by name and will go and find objects when asked. So when you see a child is really able to do the first one, following body language and pointing, then you can start saying, oh, give me the cup, or give me the... And then that will start to help them learn new words and new interactions. That's like the next step. Yeah? Okay. Who would like to read and describe observation 2 in Mandarin?
我们在一个小组里做绘画的活动，有个孩子注意到了，在他们做那个车轮子的时候，注意到了上面有记号，然后我展示了2个不同的车给他们，那一个大的，一个小的，然后我问孩子 A 说，你想要哪一个车？这个大的还是小的？他指着那个小的车，并且说小的，所以我就给了他那个小的。然后他拿着那个车，用他的左手拿着车，并且，用它在纸上做标记。然后我问他，你喜欢用什么颜色来画？他说蓝色。然后他，完成了他的画之后，他拿起来，并且就拿着他的画站起来，然后他向我展示他的手，然后我说我们去洗手间把你的手洗一下，然后我给了他一些洗手液，然后他搓了一下手，直到那些颜料没有手上的颜料洗干净，然后他 把那个洗手液冲干净，并且擦干了它，用那个纸巾擦干了的手，做得很不错。
Great, thank you very much. So this is a very different type of activity. It's a very different type of observation. I don't know if I said it, we're on observation 2. Anyway, I'm sure you found it. So what did we see here? What did the teacher see from the EYFS, from the learning and development? So we saw some communication and language. So do you want to see if you can find it in the pack on your own, and then tell me what page it's on?
Yes, 17 below.
17.
Yes.
12 to 36 months.
That's the
That's the last one.
That's the third one.
Perfect. So in communication and language understanding, which is on page 17, 22 to 36 months. And the third one is understands who, what, where. So where did we see this in the observation? Understands who, what, where. Where does it say that in the observation?
Which one?
Understand.
Big one or little one?
Big one or little one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which you want?
Good. And also which card you want?
Yeah, which card? Yeah.
Great.
You can understand the simple question.
What color you like?
What colour do you like?
Yeah.
Very good.
And maybe we should, it's not asked, but where? Go to the toilet. Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's a question. Maybe.
Maybe not as a question.
He doesn't have any choice.
He doesn't have any choice, and we don't.
No choice.
But we also don't know if he understood.
Yeah.
Maybe he just followed and didn't understand the words. Maybe, if you're there, you say, let's go to the toilet, and the child starts to walk, you know he's understood it. But just from reading this, I don't know. But this type of understanding, how about you, Yuan? Are you able to ask some of these questions in Mandarin?
Yes.
And the children are able to answer?
Yes.
Some of them?
Yes, some of them, especially the children who learns Mandarin fast, such as if I ask Olivia, but she speaks Mandarin, I ask her, where's the other children? Where's Miles? And she will answer me, 他在家, he's at home.
So this type of simple questions is a really good step in the development of language and understanding. So that's something that we should be working towards. So if we want the children to understand those questions first, they have to understand the name of things. And then afterwards we can ask a question and then we can find it. So we can show like that, for example. Okay, and then the next one on the observation 2, so we have 2 different in communication language and understanding. The second one is developing understanding of simple concepts. And that's of course in the same section that we were just looking at on page 17. Page 17, 22 to 36. The bottom one is developing understanding of simple questions. Simple concepts. So we can see that if we read the observation. So how about the next one? Expressive arts and designs. Exploring and using media and materials, notices and is interested in the effects of making movements which leave marks. So it's the bottom page, observation 2. Where is that in the big pack? 43. Perfect. So, 43, 16 to 26 months. The bottom one.
Yeah.
Notices and is interested in the effects of making movements with sheath marks.
Yeah.
So, what do we see? How do we see that in the observation?
He holds the car with his left hand and moves it, making marks on the paper. The first sentence, first paragraph,
Mm-hmm.
last sentence.
Yep. So that he's making the marks.
Finishing the painting.
When he finishes the painting, he takes off the apron. Yep. And in the picture,
Yeah.
in the photograph, we can see the marks that the car is leaving. So the teacher hasn't actually written that he's interested, but she has chosen it from here. So the observation is what the teacher writes, and then afterwards she ticks on the computer, she ticks which from the big list. So actually she didn't write that he was interested in the marks, but she was there and she said he was interested because she ticked it. So but we have to be, and I'm sure the teacher is right, but we do also have to be careful to see, is the child interested or is the teacher interested? Because it's not always the same. Is the child learning what we think the child is learning, or do we have an idea and the child just likes the colour or just likes the car and doesn't really notice anything else? But probably we can see the children looking at the table and pointing. So okay, so that's expressive arts and design, exploring and using media and materials. Okay, so our next observation is observation 3. So observation 3 is here.
truck 在这里是，这是火车吧？这是火车嘞。
你看它这个是
Okay, let's redo it. And 我们正在坐一个大船，还有卡车在水里游。一个怪物卡车，它正在和所有的汽车一起在水里游泳。这是一个小男孩 A 说的。然后他是在我问他，那他是在海里游还是在湖里游泳？女孩 B 她就说，他们又在海里游，又在湖里游。女孩 B 她说，但她还没有完成。然后他们就一起在玩，在以一个很有一起合作，并且创造并且编造了这一个故事，一边说一边用法语在说这个故事，跟彼此说这个故事。然后他们还用法语说，在这个游戏开始的
威尔是个人。
威尔他到了，在这个游戏已经开始的时候，他问他可不可以参加，然后并且后来他们都很欢迎他的加入，然后他们用法语说的。
Thank you. It sounds like a really fun activity that the children were enjoying. So if you can find the first one the teachers thought was PSED, and there were 4 different statements, so that's quite interesting. Can you find that in the pack? So on page 5, you see, on page 5 we have on the observation page 5. On the observation page 5 we have the different areas. And then where can you find that on the pack? Page 9, that's right. PSED, making relationships.
Yes.
And it's the 30 to 50.
Can play in a group. Extend, yes.
30 to 50 months. And actually she chose all 4 of them. Does that make sense? If we read those 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. So can play in a group, extending and elaborating play ideas, building up role play activity with other children. Yeah, we really see them building together with other children. Initiates play, offering cues to peers to join them. What does cue mean?
暗示就提线
It's like a signal.
Yeah, it's signal.
Yeah.
Signal. So offering signals to peers. What does peers mean?
Friends.
Same age.
Same age.
Yeah.
Very good. So initiates. So starts play. Shows signals to friends for them to join. Yeah. And then will joins. That's perfect.
Yeah.
And then keeps playing. Keeps play going by responding to what others are saying or doing. So they're talking to each other and they continue. And the teacher asks a question, they take the question, they answer, and they continue. They don't stop and then do something else. So that's, we can see that. And demonstrates friendly behaviour, initiating conversations and forming good relationships with peers and adults. Yeah. So that's exactly what we're seeing here. This is a very different type of behaviour compared to the younger children. Okay, so the next one on the observation is expressive arts and design, and we have being imaginative. So where do we find that in the pack? Okay, great. And 46. Excuse me. Only. Thank we've taken the 30, 50, page 46.
Yeah.
And what is the statement that the teacher selected?
Yeah.
And what is the statement? This one? What did the teacher say?
Build stories around
Build stories around toys. For example, farm animal needs to be rescued from an armchair in a cliff. Cool.
just build the big bowl truck in the observation.
Yeah. So they've got some things, and they've made a story with it.
Yeah.
So that if we look at what the title is, expressive arts and design being imaginative, that's exactly what we can see. They've been imaginative and they've built a story. Yeah. And then the next one is still being imaginative. So it's the next one on the 40 to 60 age group. So on page 46 it's the bottom left one, which is page 46 is the last page. And 1, 2, 3, 4. She said it's all 4 of them. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. No, she's chosen 4 of the list. So create simple representations of events, people, and objects. So they made a boat. It's representing a boat. They've introduced a storyline. So nobody gave them this story. They introduced a storyline, and they're talking about it. And then they play alongside others who are engaged in the same theme. So they've created this story, and the other child has the same story. So they're engaged in the same story, even though it's not real. So you have to be a certain age before that's possible. And then the 4th statement that the teacher chose is plays cooperatively as part of a group to develop and act out a narrative. So they're doing it as a group, and they're creating the story together. Okay, any questions? So if we go to observation 4, which starts on page 6. Observation 4. Observation. Oh. So, Yuan, do you want to describe this one to us in Mandarin?
So I start. 每次教室里有人在唱歌的时候，女孩 C 都会直接的加入到这个活动中，而且非常喜欢跳舞。有一次，一个英语老师在做一个玩偶的游戏，就是套在手上的那个玩偶，然后女孩 C 拿了一个星星，对老师说这是星星 star，然后老师紧接着唱 Twinkle Twinkle Little Star，然后女孩 C，跟老师一起唱，然后还用手指着那个玩偶，然后他们接着唱 Win the Bobina，然后女孩 C 就拍手，然后女孩 C 拍手之后，points to all the sides，然后接着做拉和拍手的动作。唱歌结束了以后，他们接着唱到roly poly，然后当老师开始唱歌的时候，女孩 C 一边跳，一边往上跳，一边跳下来，然后一边说上上上和下下下。
So, what do you think this is about in our areas of learning?
Express expressive arts and design and some physical development. They know communication and language.
Communication language. So music and singing. I think the main is communication and language.
Communication.
What's interesting is that you said, I think you mentioned physical development as well, and up and down. And actually, many activities are many different things, and in a way we can choose which one we notice the most. So you could definitely have some physical development. Expressive arts and design, maybe not so much, but definitely physical development is not wrong. You could maybe even say PSED because there's a good bond between the teacher and the child. So the interesting thing with the EYFS is that one activity could be so many different statements of the areas of learning. Here the teacher has focused on, we can see the observation, she's focused on communication and language, and she's focused on understanding, well you can see them, but understanding, listening and attention. So if we go to communication and language, understanding, 8 to 20 months, which is on page 17. So developing the ability to follow others' body language, including pointing and gestures. So that's on page 17, understanding, here we are.
Yeah, the first one.
So where in the observation, where is that? Observation that includes the teacher wrote.
It takes a star and makes a gesture of the song with her hands.
She takes star, says star.
Takes a star, says star.
Yeah.
And we can see on the second picture, the teacher has got their hand and the child has got their hand as well. So if we look at what the statement says developing the ability to follow others' body language, including pointing and gesture. So we've got it in the text and we've got it in the picture. So what's the next one? The observation statements that the teacher chose. Listening and attention. 16 to 26 months. That's it on page 15. 16 to 26 months, listens to and enjoys rhythmic patterns in rhymes and stories. How do you say that in Mandarin?
对节奏和音乐感兴趣。
And so how do we see that? Where's that in the observation? She listens to and enjoys the rhythmic patterns in rhymes and stories. The very last sentence in the observation says the girl is pointing up and down, saying up, 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 down, down, down. If she's repeating it, she must have noticed the pattern, dun, 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 dun. So, yes, there's speaking, but there's also the listening and attention first. And actually, if we look at the speaking on this list, so communication and language, and if we go to speaking, which is on page, the same age group as page 19. And if we look at the 16 to 26, and even the 8 to 20, there's nothing here that's really talking about the child speaking or singing in these and saying this, having that rhythm. Do you see? Yeah, so on page 19.
19
Speaking.
So this is speaking,
嗯
but there's nothing really here about singing to a rhythm.
嗯
Do you see?
Mm.
So my first reaction when I hear that, and the child is singing up, 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 down, 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 I think that, to me, that's speaking and singing. But if we look at this list, they don't mention anything about that. So the teacher has chosen to put it in listening and attention because it talks about the rhythm, which is the important thing that was happening here. There was singing and rhythm. So sometimes you think, oh, it's this, but when you look at the list is talking about something a bit different. So you have to find it somewhere else on the list.
Some child may advance progress, maybe better than the normal or fast or slow.
Yes,
It's normal.
and it's normal. And if a child is at a lower age band than we expect, we talk about it and see how can we help the child to progress in that area. So it's normal, but we look at it and we help. And if we look and we help and then there's still no progress, maybe there's a problem and they need more support. Okay, so if we go back to the statements the teacher chose, we have enjoys rhymes and demonstrates listening by trying to join in with actions or vocalizations. So the teacher chose this. Do you want to, what does that mean? What does enjoy rhymes and demonstrates listening? How do you say that in Mandarin?
is pay attention to.
Shows. Demonstrates means shows.
Oh, sorry.
这个是我不太
Shows the behavior maybe?
And vocalization means.
It's using your voice.
Oh, yeah, in vocal. Yeah.
Vocal.
他享受这个韵律，并且会表达出来他在听，并且还尝试加入用那个行动或者是声音。对。
And so what page is that on in the big pack? That's right.
15.
Great. And then
Second one.
second one.
Vocal.
Very good.
Jones.
And then we have the final one for this observation. Observation 4 is communication language understanding, which here we have on page 17. Selects familiar object by name and will go and find the object when asked or identify objects from a group. What does that, how do you say that in Mandarin?
能够选择他们所熟悉的物体，并且还可 可以去找到当提出要求时，还可以找到这个物体，然后从一堆物体里边去找到他们所熟悉的物体。
And what's the example from the observation?
Takes a star and says star.
That's exactly it. So the song is the song Twinkle Twinkle is a song about stars, and so the word star is in the song, and the child has taken the star, and we can just see it in blue, I think, in the picture. I think in the child's hand, maybe that's a star.
Yeah, blue one, yeah.
Great. So if I just want to look at this one again. Do you see how we're using these 7 areas and the sub areas to really identify what the children are doing? So when we first looked at it, it was like a list and an idea, but with the observations, we can see what we do in the classroom, how it fits like this. That in many activities we have communication and language, and we have PSED and many things are happening in the classroom. And there's a lot of learning, and we can really track and support the children. So even though it feels very different to a primary school where there's a teacher with a lesson plan, we recognize that maybe at university, again, somebody talks or we read a book, studying and learning feels quite different. And then we come to a nursery and we think they're just playing. But hopefully with these observations, we can and this material, we can see this is how the children learn at this age. It doesn't need a formal lesson in the same way. I think often the Confucius Institute, for example, will often talk about like the circle time, and it's easy for them. When we in our first conversations, they say, "Oh, the circle time is the most important." But here we see, even in a song, there can be a lot of learning, and it's the same if we read a book. And so many of the activities and the interaction is actually education. Does that make sense?
They're not just playing.
They're not just playing.
At the beginning we noticed observe nothing. Now every action means a lot.
Every action means a lot. Perfect. So if we look, we have this one has no number.
No number, 5.
So it will be observation 5. So on the video, probably it will be better than my hand one, but this is this one. So I'll read it in English for you. So we are working to develop their fine motor skills in the bunnies. We plan an activity with pipe cleaners and strainers, where they have to put the pipe cleaners into small holes of the strainers. Girl C joins the activity, and at first the teacher is showing her how to do it, and after she does it on her own. Girl C takes one pipe cleaner with her whole hand and inserts it in the holes. Then she takes another pipe cleaner, slides her hand along the pipe cleaner, taking it between her thumb and her fingers, and pushing it into the holes with her index finger. Girl C spends long time in the activity, inserting pipe cleaners again and again. She's very focused on what she's doing, but sometimes she looks at her peers playing around her. So what is... So her whole hand is the whole hand, so she takes something with her whole hand, and later she takes it with her thumb and her fingers, so she holds it a little bit more precisely. These are really good skills because we want children to learn to control their fingers, because it's useful, and specifically in education, these fingers we use for writing later. So maybe a child uses their right hand, or maybe they use their left hand. Of course, every child is unique, and we make no difference which hand they want to use. They can use whichever hand they're more comfortable. And sometimes you'll notice children changing hands. They take something and then they change hands. And at this age, they're discovering and playing, and then most children will choose to use their right hand as they get older. Some children will prefer their left hand, and very few children makes no difference, or they can use both quite well. Normally there's one hand that's a little bit better than the other, but any hand is fine, and the child chooses. And then she pushes it into the hole with her index finger. Index finger is the pointing finger, so it's the second one. This is the index finger. Do you know what a pipe cleaner is? Yeah, it's the colour thing in the picture. So these are pipe. Yeah, it's like a string. These are colourful ones for children, but the original pipe cleaner, it's like a wire, and it has many things on the side, and you put it inside a pipe, and it cleans the pipe. You put it and it cleans the pipe. Children like it because it has interesting texture. It feels interesting. It's soft and fuzzy, and it has like a length. It can be quite fun to play with. And they're putting it in the holes. Do we understand the activity?
Yeah.
And what is fine motor skill? Who remembers this one? It is on your vocab lists. On the vocab list. What is a fine motor skill? Fine motor skills. How do you say that in Mandarin?
精细动作技能
Very good. And do you know what that means?
Means, it means pay attention, and it's difficult to do, and it's more careful and slow.
Yeah. It's this small action, having control
Yes.
over your fine action. So, for example, using chopsticks
Yeah.
requires very good fine motor skills.
Yeah.
And then gross motor skill is the opposite. It's the big movements. So, running or pushing. These are the big muscles, and those are also important. But here, this is a very good example of helping children to develop their fine motor skills. And then, so the teacher chose 2 statements. So we had understanding the world, and then physical development. So understanding the world, let's first find the page where it's on. So it's 8 to 20 months, understanding the world, and it's the world. This one. Did you find it? So it's page 39. And then what does this mean? Becomes absorbed in objects, combining
Complete attention.
complete attention, that's right. So absorbed is complete attention. So we really like that. Children learn a lot when they are absorbed. And here it's about combining objects. So what are the 2 objects they are combining here?
The streamer and the calendar.
That's it.
Yeah.
Very good. Wow. Is that word in the... They used a different word, so you know that word on your own. Yeah. You called it a colander, that's right, that's what I would call it. She called it a strainer. Both words are good. Strainer, I would use colander, but strainer is also a good word. I'm surprised you knew that word in English. You must have very good vocabulary. So the example is banging 2 objects or placing objects into containers. So here there is this idea of putting it in the hole. And then the next one is physical development, 8 to 20 months. So page 22. Perfect. 8 to 20 months. So what is the statement she chose? That's it.
Yeah.
So picks up small objects between thumb and fingers. So I think it's maybe just before the index fingers. She literally said takes it between thumb and fingers. So at first it's with the whole hand. First it's with the whole hand, and then it's with the thumb and fingers.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we want to see for this age group, 8 to 20. So the change from with the whole hand to fine motor skills, the beginning of fine motor skills. So this looks like a very nice activity for the children for this age group. Perfect. And if we go to our last observation, which is labelled observation 6. You can see at the top it says observation 6. That's a joke, because it's not Li Wen, do you want to... so this is a Montessori.
Yeah, Montessori.
This very Montessori room, the pink tower here, which the child is doing as best as he can, is a very Montessori activity. Normally, the big ones are at the bottom and the small ones are at the top. But the child is still learning. So, Li Wen, do you want to describe this in Mandarin for us, please?
Okay.
对，就是他一个人随意，然后呢，老师告诉他一个就是大的在下边。
男孩 H 他在做一个这个的一个粉色的塔，他开始很随意的，自己随便把塔摆成了他想要的形状，然后老师向他展示大一些的砖块要在下面，然后小一点的砖块在上面，并且邀请他，从大到小依次摆塔。男孩 H 在摆这个塔，当他尝试着把正确的型号放在下面的时候，他一边说一边做。这个最大的塔这个是最大的砖，当他做完这个塔的时候，他一边说一边微笑，我完成了。然后他数这个砖块，从1数到了10，跟老师一起跟着数。
Thank you. So we have 3 areas of mathematics here. So it's interesting because if you don't know much about children, you might think this is only a physical activity. And of course there's probably some gross and some fine motor skills here. But the most interesting thing that we're focusing on with this activity is really mathematics. So the teacher has chosen 3 different areas, well, 4 different statements. So the first one is beginning to categorize objects according to properties such as shape or size. So with a Montessori activity, the teacher first introduces the activity. So she will have already introduced it. And the idea here is that the biggest ones are at the bottom and the smallest ones are at the top. And you can see the child has, if we look at the picture, actually it's not perfect. The biggest one is in position 3 from the bottom, not at the bottom. But more or less, the biggest ones are at the bottom and the smaller ones are at the top.
Yeah.
And if we look at the statement, it says beginning. So it doesn't say perfect, it says beginning to categorize objects. And we can really see the link between the picture and the statement. Do you understand categorize objects according to properties?
给它分类。
对。
分类 just example, he choose the cube from which is the big from biggest to smallest, which is big, which is small, just divide. Yes.
divide.
区分大小，对，就是
To put in an order.
Yes.
区分大小
形状。
space, shape, and bigger,
Color.
bigger,
Yeah.
small. Yeah.
Very good. And properties, for example, shape. Properties, for example, size. So the properties is how something is. It could be soft or hard. That would be a property as well. So do you understand the statements? Do you understand it completely? Is that okay? Or is there a question? Is that okay? The properties?
Yeah. Sorry.
No, please.
Okay, good.
这个物体的意思，
啊，
他所选中的这个
那就是size.
And then we have the next one's mathematics numbers. So recite some number names in sequence. So what is recites? Recites means say on their own. So they know and say.
Remember.
Yeah.
I speak. This one.
So some numbers in sequence. So if it was, you can laugh now. Yeah, so it'd be yi er san, and then si wu. So it says some numbers. So maybe I can go yi er san and si wu. So I know some numbers, but the teacher has to help me for some. Yeah. So this one recites some numbers in sequence. So not wu yi er. That's the wrong one. But yi er is the right order. It's the right sequence. So the child recites or says some numbers in the right way. And here we see the last sentence. He counts up to 10 with the teacher. So probably he doesn't do all of them on his own. But some of them are in the right order, the correct order. So this one recites some numbers in sequences, he gets some right. And then if we go to the bottom statement on this list, the teacher recites number in order to 10. And she put developing. So developing does not mean secure, does not mean he can do it on his own. He's starting to do it. So with some help, he's starting to do it in the right order. And we know from the middle one, recites some number names in sequence. We know that some he gets on his own, and then we can see with the teacher he can get to 10. And then I missed one, which was uses some number names accurately in play. So at some point on his own, he used some numbers. So even without the numbers, just putting them from big to small is already a beginning of mathematics. And then the numbers is also obviously mathematics. So this was the little introduction to observations. At the moment, this might change for the people watching the video, but at the moment we don't ask the Chinese teacher to write observations. But you will see the English and French teachers writing observations all the time. They have a target, they have to do many observations every week. And then at the end, we use these observations to make a report for the child. And then the teachers will assess for all of the 7 areas and all of the sub-areas what age group each child is in. So there'll probably be a mixture depending on the area of learning. Some a bit more advanced than other areas for the same child. And then every term they do new reports. So we have all these observations to produce one report, and the next term they do it again, and then we do it again. We have 3 terms a year, and then we can see the children progressing. And if a child is not progressing, we have to give extra support. So this is how we have to organise our planning for the children, and the teachers do planning. There's a planning meeting probably in your classroom every week. But also I think it's just helpful to think, to understand this way of thinking of education, because the more you read these examples, the more you look at this pack, and you'll have another training on this again. I think probably in 2 days. It just helps you to think about education for this age group. Okay, so I think if there are no questions.
Yes, we just need time to know the progress of, yes, which period we should teach,
Yes.
according to the period. For example, like yesterday, when I read story with the child, and there is a picture, and with 3 stars, I just count 1, 2, 3 Mandarin, but they have no interest, have no idea for the number, totally no. So if she is a baby in Bunny's room, so teach the number is maybe no meaning.
So let's have a look at the pack. So if we find mathematics, shall we look at it now?
But for me, as it's not no meaningful. But we should we shouldn't make it difficult. For example, from 1 to 10, maybe it's too difficult.
So if we look at page 32, this one, and we have numbers.
32.
So here,
Up to 3.
up to 3. So this is noticing changes in numbers and objects or sounds in groups of up to 3.
Yeah.
And the next one is, in the 8 to 20 months, develop an awareness of number names through their enjoyment of action rhymes. So do you remember what a rhyme is? So there's something about the timing. So if you're going to count the stars, you can go 1, 2, 3. You know, there's a way to give the children will enjoy the energy in the rhyme more than just the numbers 1, 2, 3. That's not so interesting, and very difficult. But if there's a rhyme with it and an energy with it, then they're starting to recognize the words and they enjoy the rhyme.
So this is very useful.
Rhyme is very important.
If we know the progress, the step by step, the learn step by step, and we can so we know when we should give them the knowledge and how to give.
So you can use this document if you have questions. Of course, you can talk to your team and your room leaders, but I find this very useful. I find this very useful. Even now, like if a parent asks for a meeting with me and they're worried about their education, I always just remind myself. I look quickly, just go, okay. I look at the report. Is what I do. I look at the report of the child and I see where they are. It helps me talk to parents, but in the classroom, this is very, very useful.
Teacher in the nursery is every day, right?
Yeah, every day.
Because they take picture and then they analyze
Yes.
the kid.
So they take the picture and then they write, and then afterwards there's this long list, and they have to choose it. But actually, the age group in each classroom is not all of this. This list goes from 0 to 60 months. The penguins does not go from 0 to 60 months. None of the classrooms do all of them. So the teachers know
Oh,
They know the age group in their classroom,
嗯
and they use it all the time, so it becomes familiar.
Yeah, familiar. So,
And they use this to make, according this to make a plan.
To make a plan.
mm.
So they can see, because for each one, we saw a little bit, I didn't go into too much detail, but with the, for example, counting from 1 to 10. So there's beginning, and you can do it sometimes, and then you can do it every time. So there are the 3 stages, from just starting to maybe I get it right today, but maybe tomorrow I make a mistake, and then it's very good. So for the plans, it's also, well, we see where the child is, and then we want to help them get to the next stage for the same statement. But then when they can do that statement very well, we can then work on other statements, maybe in the same age group. And when they can do all the statements in the age group very well, we can think about the next age group. Even if their age is a little bit different, once they're very good on their own for everything in one section, they can do the next section. So it's very, very useful for planning. On the iPads, it's just the statements on the unique child. It doesn't show you the positive relationships with the environment. It's just what the child can do, but it has all of them on the software. And so the teachers just choose the right one.